Europe just launched the biggest military spending program since the Cold War. 800 billion euros. And America? They're deliberately locked out. This isn't just a procurement decision. This is a geopolitical earthquake that most people in Washington didn't see coming. The EU SAFE program provides 150 billion euros in loans for weapons purchases. It's the centerpiece of the larger Readiness 2030 plan. But here's where it gets interesting. At least 65% of all weapon components must come from EU countries, Ukraine, or European Economic Area nations. Only 35% can come from outside, meaning America gets, at best, a third of the business. But this isn't really about percentages. It's about something much deeper: control. EU Vice President Kaja Kallas explained it at a Brussels press conference. If you use weapons that are not produced in your country, sometimes there are limitations on how you can use those weapons. Your military needs to really have free hands. She was talking about what European officials call the kill switch concern. The fear that American weapons come with strings attached. That Washington could restrict when or where European allies use American-made systems. The F-35 fighter jet is the most prominent example. Some European capitals have openly questioned whether they can rely on American weapons in a crisis if Washington decides to limit their use. So Europe decided to stop asking permission. They decided to build their own weapons. And they're not just talking about it. The money is already flowing. By November 2025, 19 EU member states submitted funding requests totaling over 190 billion euros. That's 25% more than the program's initial budget. Poland alone requested 43.7 billion euros, more than a third of the entire fund. Romania asked for 19 billion. France and Hungary each requested nearly 19 billion. The demand was so overwhelming that Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said countries were already calling for a second SAFE instrument before the first one even launched. Think about that. They haven't even spent the first 150 billion, and they're already asking for more. This is what happens when allies lose faith in American commitments. But here's the part that should truly alarm every policymaker in Washington, for major U.S. allies have applied to join this European program. Not European countries. American allies. Canada joined in December 2025, becoming the first non-European country in SAFE. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced it would give Canadian defense companies tremendous opportunities in the European market. This is the same Mark Carney who declared just months earlier that the decade-long process of ever closer economic relationship with the U.S. is over. Canada isn't just diversifying. They're deliberately pivoting away from American defense partnerships and toward European ones. That's a choice. A calculated strategic decision. Then came the others. Japan, South Korea, and Turkey all submitted applications within days of each other. Japan became the first Indo-Pacific country to sign a security and defense partnership with the EU back in November 2024. Now, they want full SAFE access. Japanese officials are seeking agreements that would let Japanese-made components exceed the normal 35% for countries. For American allies. All of them seeking closer defense ties with Europe rather than the United States. Meanwhile, Britain's attempt to join collapsed spectacularly. In November, Brussels demanded up to 6.75 billion euros from the UK to participate. London countered with just 82 million euros plus administrative costs. The gap was unbridgeable. Even America's closest ally, a major NATO power with one of Europe's largest defense industries, couldn't negotiate better terms. If Britain can't get in, what hope does America have? The answer appears to be very little. Washington has not signed a security and defense partnership with the EU. Without such an agreement, American companies are limited to that 35% threshold. And for complex weapon systems, American involvement may be even more restricted. The irony is impossible to miss. Trump spent years, pressuring NATO allies to spend more on defense. He demanded they meet the 2% GDP target. He threatened to withdraw American protection if they didn't pay up. Well, they're paying up now. NATO allies agreed to raise spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. European defense budgets have nearly doubled in 4 years, from 218 billion euros in 2021 to a projected 392 billion in 2025. But they're not buying American. They're building European. Consider Germany. Their 2025 to 2026 procurement plan allocates $83 billion annually for defense. Only 8% of that is going to American suppliers. 8%. The rest is going to German and European manufacturers. But as Europe builds its own capabilities, that market shrinks. European countries won't stop buying American entirely. They can't, not yet. But the trend is unmistakable. And here's what American policymakers need to understand. This isn't reversible. The investment decisions being made now will shape European defense for decades. Factories being built today will produce weapons for 30 or 40 years. Even if American policy changed tomorrow, even if a new administration adopted a more collaborative approach, The industrial momentum is already moving. European companies are gearing up. European governments are committed. European taxpayers are paying. Trump wanted Europe to spend more on defense. Mission accomplished. He demanded they take responsibility for their own security. They're doing exactly that. He just didn't understand that spending on defense means building an industry. And building an industry means creating capabilities. And creating capabilities means reducing dependence. And reducing dependence means America loses influence. This is the fundamental miscalculation. Trump thought he could pressure allies into paying more without changing the underlying power dynamic. He thought Europe would spend more on defense, but still buy American. He thought he could have it both ways. He was wrong. Europe is rearming for a dangerous world. Russia's threat is real. The security environment has deteriorated. The need for capable military forces is genuine. Europe is rearming for a dangerous world. Russia's threat is real. The security environment has deteriorated. The need for capable military forces is genuine. They're just rearming without America. For U.S. allies have applied to join them. And Washington is watching hundreds of billions of dollars in contracts and decades of strategic influence slip away.